found it quite difficult, to be honest with you, moving and accepting that I was playing for a club as big as Arsenal. I didn't feel worthy. I felt for many years that I was, I'd won the raffle and someone was going to tap me on the shoulder and go, "You've got to go now, your time's up."
Lee, great to see you. If I say Arsenal Football Club, what does that mean to you in your life?
God, I don't think anyone's ever asked me that.
There you go. There's an original question.
Wow, it's not like you, Steve. What does it mean to me? If we take family out of this and personal life, then it probably the biggest thing in my life. We've all got history of our childhoods and remember all the good times when we're growing up, and I think sometimes we lose sight of that as we get a little bit older, because we just get all covered up with everything we're doing at the moment. But the one constant in my life throughout my adult life, if you like, has been Arsenal Football Club, and being part of that, I guess, it's a similar thing to being in a family. I feel as if when I walked through those doors and that back in the late 80s, I was a kid really. I was quite naive in lots of ways. All I'd done was play football. So life skills didn't really have many. I just, and I got married pretty young. Got a house when I signed for Arsenal. I was married, had a kid, had 2 kids. So by the time I was like 24, 25, I was, I had a house and paying a mortgage, and I had 2 kids, and I'd not really lived at all. But my football life was up and running, and that was everything to me. So I've been quite cocooned in that world for most of my life, and I felt really safe there. I think that comes home to me now, and I look back, being that young lad coming down from Manchester who'd only ever been to London once in his lifetime up until that point, and that was to an England game when I was at college. I'd never even been down to London, so to move down there and start a life down there, I needed some protection. And back in the day, we perhaps didn't get as looked after as the pros do now. Everything's done for the lads now, and we had a certain amount of help along the way, trying to find a house and people looking after the off the field stuff for you. But you were pretty much still out there on your own, and I found that the protection of the club was where I felt most safe, and it enabled me to then go and play and express myself on the football pitch, because I found it quite difficult, Steve, to be honest with you, moving and accepting that I was playing for a club as big as Arsenal. I didn't feel worthy. I felt for many years that I was, I'd won the raffle and someone was going to tap me on the shoulder and go, "You've got to go now, your time's up." And so I had to work really hard at my game. George was brilliant for that. He really educated me on what he needed from me, and forming the back four became a sort of family within the family, and I felt really safe in that environment. I'd prefer to go and play and do back four work, which we did every day. And so, although we moaned about it over the years and said, God, we've got back four work, secretly I felt quite safe there, because I knew Tony, I knew Boldy from Stoke, and I knew Nigel intimately. The 4 of us had a real special bond, and that's forgetting John Lukic and David Seaman. They were part of that back four, and I felt really safe in that environment. So I didn't mind doing the defensive work, because it was my little team. And then going and training with the other brilliant footballers that were there when I first signed, the David Rocastles, Paul Davis, all those guys. It was really intimidating. So it was a scary prospect. So I kind of made a promise to myself I wouldn't be lacking in effort. And if I got found out and I was only there a couple of years, then fine. I'd made it to the first division as it was then, and that'd do me. One game in the Arsenal team was enough for me, and then until I'd played it, and then I wanted another one. And I just did it. I know it's a cliche, but I did it one game at a time. I thought, right. And before you know it, I look back now. I remember the day when I played. It was my 500th appearance, and I got a little cannon presented to me on the pitch by Ken Fryer. and he gave me this can, and I looked down and it had Lee Dixon, 500th Arsenal appearance, and it blew me away. I was like, God, I could still remember game 1, and 500 went like that. And so it's a long answer to your question, but I think, and it seems a daft answer, but safety and family environment and feeling at home was probably the biggest thing I got out of Arsenal, and I still feel like that about the club now.
What's it like to spend so long, not just your professional career, but as you say, your life at one club, at one place?
You get more from it now because you're looking back on it and you're going, wow, you forget how you felt all those years, and I felt comfortable, and I think that's not comfortable in that I was going to play every week, because I always put the pressure on myself thinking this could be my last game, so I better make it a good one. But comfortable in going to training, same training ground, although we, same place of work, different environment, and Arsene Wenger changed all that, obviously, brilliantly, and it was just, why wouldn't you relish every single second of that? And I try to. Sometimes we get too comfortable and we take things for granted in football, in life, in anything. And I'm certainly been guilty of that. But I try to go into the training ground every morning. I remember I had a kind of thing when I always used to take the kids to school. And then, because we train at the start at 10 o'clock, you have to be in for 10, for 10:30 start. I mean, if you can't get in for 10, then you should be fined. All these players that get, fined for not being in on time, get in at 10. It's not too arduous. But as soon as I got there, before I got out of my car, and I'm saying it now, and obviously it wasn't a conscious thought every morning, but I try to remind myself every time it came up for me, make it a good day at training, make it the best you can, try and learn something today. And you don't learn anything every day. Some days you go in, you really can't be bothered. You're tired, you didn't sleep well, your dog's got something wrong with his ear, you've got to go to the vets later, all the life stuff that everybody else has. But you have to go and try and physically be the best you can, but also mentally, and learn something and learn what happened at the weekend, because you're getting reminders all the time. Every time you play a game, you're getting reminders on what your weaknesses are, what you're good at, what you're bad at, what people keep going, you've done that again. So there's a lesson every day to learn, and you'll see something on a training pitch that you go, I saw that on Saturday. Nigel did that on Saturday, and that's what he did to get out of that problem. And I used to learn off the other players. I watch Nigel all the time. He's one of the best fullbacks that's ever played for Arsenal, and he went right under the radar a lot of the time because he wasn't, flamboyant. He wasn't. The fans loved him, and quite rightly so. But I learnt a lot off Nigel about how not to get beat by a winger. He never got beat. No one ever beat. It's like Dennis Irwin. No one ever got past him. I was like, how does he do that? Because I used to get beat all the time. Semi-final, Man United, 3 or 4 times by Ryan Giggs. But I used to learn every day something had come up in training. Dennis's touch, Dennis's pass to Ian Wright. Why did he pass it to his right foot there? Because somebody was on his left side and he would have got intercepted, and little things like that. And I didn't have the skill or the ability to be able to do a Dennis Bergkamp pass regularly. But every now and again, on a pitch, a ball would come to me, and I'd look up and I'd notice, say Wrighty again, notice Wrighty where he was. And I'd try and, in the early days, you just try and get the ball to his feet, because then you don't get booed off the fans. You've done something well. George Graham isn't slagging you off in your ear. You feel a sense of achievement because you've made a pass to a red shirt, and that's how it should be. But then I'd hit one to him and I'd play it to his right foot because somebody was marking him on his left. And I'd spotted that on the Wednesday, Dennis doing it. And then the next one I'd mess up. But it was, so those little things over a period of, I was at Arsenal nearly 15 years, so over that period of time, you're collating all this information and trying to, it's an overload sometimes, and that's why every day I used to try and remind myself in the car park, what you're going to do today, is there anything you need to work and feel a bit, I wasn't quite sharp enough on Saturday, I'm going to do a few extra sprints, I'm going to speak to the fitness coach, do I need to do a bit more, am I not strong enough, So it's like and that's how absolutely it should be for everybody. In my mind, it might not suit other players and they prepare themselves in the way that they do, But in my mind of how a footballer should be on a daily basis is be punctual, be on time, and try and give every single training session the best you can on how you're feeling on that day. Because some days, as I said, you might feel absolutely terrible. You might be carrying a knock from Saturday. You've got to see the physio, but you're not fit enough. You're not injured enough to be out of training, so you've got to manage that situation. And then you're thinking about picking the kids up from school because I really need to rest this afternoon. It's Thursday, and I'm feeling a bit tired. We've got Tottenham on Saturday, so how do I manage my Thursday in order to be the best I can on the Friday, knowing what I need to do prep-wise to play against Ryan Giggs on the Saturday? So it's a constant turnover of information, and it's all geared to prep for the next game, and that happens every 3 or 4 days. So I can't even remember the question.
Answer this one then. So you walk into Arsenal and you say you don't feel at home. You're a young boy from the north. You went on to win 4 titles. What was the first one like? What was that feeling like from that moment to getting a league title medal in your hand?
It happened so quickly because it's my first full season, and I was in sponge mode, trying to take all this information in of where I am, who I'm playing with. The tactics are completely the opposite of what I've done as a fullback, let alone a back four. Just as a fullback, I remember my first training session at London. We trained at Highbury in the gym, and we were doing a little 5-a-side, and George kept shouting at me. He kept shouting in, and I was like, "Why do you keep shouting in at me?" And Dave Rocastle, and he goes, "That means inside." And I said, "What does that mean?" He said, "No, we show inside. So whenever you go to a player, you show him inside to the middle of the pitch. It doesn't matter where he is. If you're on the line, you show him inside. If you're off the line, you still show him inside and to the middle of the pitch." And I was like, "Well, what about the winger when you show him inside? If you get beat down the outside, you just watch what happens." I was like, and he beat me down the outside in this 5-a-side, and George was shouting in at me at the time, and I was like, "Oh, inside. How do I show?" I don't even know how to show a player inside. And I was quite quick. People say, "Oh, you were all right quick." And I was pretty decent when I was, at my peak. Not many people beat me for pace. So, the winger would start running at me off the line, and I would just open my body up and show him down the line, because that's away from danger. It's the exact opposite of what we did at Arsenal, because George wanted us to know the danger. If he beats you, he crosses it, and how many goals come from crosses? A lot. So stop the cross. In order to stop the cross, make the winger go. He doesn't want to go inside. It's slightly different now because you've got inverted wingers who want to go inside. Still works the system, because you're all trained to know that the person at the ball is going to show him inside. So if Dave Rocastle's going to close the winger down before me, I don't need to look at this side of the pitch, because he's not going to get there, because Dave knows at all cost he's showing him towards you. So I'm here waiting for him to come. And if he gets beat down the outside, then there's a contingency plan, there's plan B. But plan B under George very rarely came out the locker, because it was plan A, show him inside, show him inside. And when they go inside, they end up going out to the other wing. And then Nigel's job was to show him inside, coming this way. So you funnel everyone into the middle of the pitch where all your men are, and then you win the ball back, and then you attack. That's the philosophy. And it wasn't George Graham, it was Don Howe, and it was passed down. Don taught a lot of that, and George took it on board that this is how he was going to play. We're going to be efficiently defensive, and we were going to make sure that we didn't concede goals. And our pressing, we talk about, Klopp when he came and the press and all that. It was, it was very different. But we were doing it then. It was different. So to actually take all that information on, and then by the end of the season when we won the league and we got that medal, it was like, how did that happen? It happened. It seems to happen so quick, because I was too busy trying to take all this information in, and we didn't realise how well we were doing that season until we kind of got to Christmas and went, we're top of the league. And then obviously we all started to panic and get scared, and we weren't top of the league for long. And then obviously Liverpool caught us and overtook us. And then the ending was just, we'd gone back to how we were pre-Christmas, around Christmas, we went, right, that's it. Let's not play with any fear. Nothing to lose. If we'd have had to go to Anfield and get a draw, probably would have lost, because they were on a run of all runs. They were knocking teams over left, right and centre, and a few days before, obviously a couple of weeks before, because of Hillsborough, they beat West Ham 5, and they were, you know, really at their best. And so the fact that it needed to be 2-0, I think, was in our favour. The only instruction you had was just go and play. We were all 32, 33. He knew that we could defend, and I'm not just saying this, but he hit the perfect storm when he came to Arsenal. From a defensive point of view, we were all basically at our peak.
You mentioned George Graham a few times. Then later on you came across Arsene Wenger. I mean, how different was that? You're talking about sourcing information. Did that just sort of blow your mind from one extreme to the other?
Well, it's probably the opposite of what you think, is that I took all the information in from George and learned how to defend as a team and a unit and individually. And so Arsene just came and had a look at that, and he just basically... Probably, this is probably exaggerating it and stretching it a bit. If he said 5 words to me, or 5 sentences to me that gave me any instruction about what to do or how to do it, I could fit that amount of sentences on one hand. He never told me to do anything or not do anything. It basically just went, the only instruction you had was just go and play. Because he trusted what we knew. We were all 32, 33. He knew that we could defend. And I'm not just saying this, but he hit the perfect storm when he came to Arsenal. From a defensive point of view, we were all basically at our peak. It was just like, he didn't have to do anything with us.
Well, that's clever in itself, isn't it?
Absolutely. And you know, if you ask him now, he says he was going to come and break us all up, because he didn't like the age factor. He thought we were going to, you know, because it was a quite expansive physical game that he wanted to play. They're not going to be fit enough to do that. So he was kind of like thinking about, how am I going to change that? And he saw us and went, oh, right, so they are quite fit, and, you know, they don't really get injured. We didn't really get injured that much. I hardly got injured. Nigel never got injured. Tony had a few niggles. Baldy never got injured. Martin Keown always said he was injured, but he wasn't really. So he just went, I tell you what, if I put 2 absolute blinders in front of him, you know, in Petit and Vieira, this could work. And he was, you know, we won the double in his first full season, and it was at a cruise. Defensively, we're just carrying on with what we're doing, and I just went, wow, can I go over the halfway line now? And he's, just do what you want. Can I? Really? So all the information was done under George. So the freedom I had at 32 to 38 when I retired, it was like dreamland. It was like the best time for me from an enjoyment point of view. I loved winning trophies and grinding out, you know, Cup Winners' Cup wins against Parma and all of that stuff under George. Those days you'll never forget, and they were the base for then to go and play with the freedom with the players that he put in a team.
Well, I was going to ask you about that. What about some of the players you then played with later in your career under Arsene Wenger?
I mean, you could have played right back for Arsenal.
Don't get carried away.
In the 98 double side. I mean, it was so easy. We still have to work hard, but I was born on working hard, so that didn't bother me. And every time I got the ball, if I gave the ball away, it was a crime, because I had got Patrick Vieira coming towards me, demanding the ball, you know, shouting at me, give me the ball. There's a player on you, don't mind, give it me. It's like, okay, well, you have it then. And then I still got the get out ball of knocking it back to Tony or Martin, and then I'd look up, Ray Parlour would be running all day long, and I'd look up and he'd have Righty to begin with, but then he'd have Dennis Bergkamp, Nicholas Anelka running in the hole. I could switch a ball to Mark Overmars on the left wing, and you couldn't give the ball away. I had 5 options every time I got it, I very rarely give it away. I was just like, oh, go on, then you have it. And then I'd just stand there and watch this thing happen. And then Thierry came and he got even better. It was, honestly, it was just so much fun and so enjoyably easy because we were doing what we knew, keeping the ball out of net, and then giving it to these players that were like, and I could go over the halfway line at the same time as the left back, Ashley Cole, but at the same time. Wow. That's the football I'm not used to.
And you said to me many times he stretched your career out at Arsenal, and he managed to manage you, didn't he, in that last season, which was a fairy tale ending for you, really.
Yeah, me and Tony were struggling that last season. Lauren had come in. There'd been a few pretenders to try and come in and take my shirt, and I was like, I'd seen them all off up until that point. And when Lauren came, I thought, well, this one could be quite difficult because he was a proper athlete, good footballer, hard as nails, defensively pretty sound, and I thought, do you know what, I won't resist this because you can't play forever. So I took it upon myself to try and help him as much as I was still playing, and he was in front of me, and then he'd play a few games, and then slowly but surely he started to play more than I did. And I thought, what's the point? I love the club so much. So I said to him, anything you need from me, anything you want, ask me anything, and I'll give you as much information as I can, because I want, it hurt him having my shirt, but I knew it was natural progression and I wasn't going to be there forever. So I thought, and also we could win the league and the cup double with him playing fullback, and I'll just, when he's injured or needs a rest, I'll pop in. So it was a difficult season, but it was really enjoyable because I knew it was coming to the end, and Arsene was brilliant with me and Tony. He just used to say, he used to watch us walk out the dressing room in the morning for training. He'd always be out there first, and then we'd start jogging towards a pitch, and I'd be limping like this on my knee and my ankle, and Tony'd be holding his back and his knee, and he'd sort of look at us and he'd just go, go and have a swim, and we go, okay, right, go back. And me and Tony would be in the swimming pool, and the lads would be coming out, and the glass windows at Coney, and you can see in the swimming pool. And me and Tony were like swimming past, waving at the lads going to do a running session. It was great. I quite enjoyed that season because it was like I knew it was winding down, and I couldn't physically do the work. And once you stop doing the work in training, the games become you almost too difficult to play because the intensity of the game. You need that physicality during the week, and I just couldn't do the training. But 38's pretty decent.
Absolutely, it was a great way to end. So, all your glory years at Arsenal, all the trophies. Now they've had 5 years out of the top four. You see a lot of them in your broadcasting career. Where are Arsenal Football Club at now for you, and where do they need to go, Lee?
Oh, well, and it's been a gradual demise. And it's not just because Arsene Wenger's left. That I think he would look back at his career and pick a few years earlier that he would say enough's enough. Where the club's at now, 2 seasons of 8th. Who is 8th, wasn't it?
Sorry to confirm
It sticks in my throat. When they are, it hurts me to say, but they are a million miles away from where we were, and a million miles away from the top 4. There's got to be a huge amount of reflection from the owners to say, what are we doing? And it seems like they've spent 550 million in the last 5 years. That's a huge amount of money. So the recruitment has to be looked at, and also who you're recruiting and why you're recruiting them. And you look at who they've signed in this window, and they're all under 23-year-olds. So with that in mind, you go, well, they're not going to move you too far up the league right now. So they must have said to Arteta, it's a project, and you've got another 3 years, because it's going to be at least a year, 2 years, 3 years before these players are knocking the lights out. If they've got it right, and time will tell whether they've got that right. But has he got time? They must have said to him, if he's gone to him with a budget and said, how much can I have, and this is what the players I want, and they look to those players and goes, they're all young players, they're not going to turn it over overnight, so it's a project, so you've got another 3 seasons, then fine. The money they've spent, you would suggest the recruitment they've got it massively wrong so far. Way back from that is, you're going to finish 8th for the next 3 or 4 seasons till these kids pull you out of it.
Listen, great to see you again, mate. Thank you for your tales.
My pleasure.